Primero, me dice su nombre y...
Okay, my name is Carlos A. Rodgers Jr. I'm the son of my dad was named Carlos A. Rodgers, and my grandfather was Manuel Rodgers, originally from San Diego, California. And he happened to, during the beginning of last century, he used to be a coal stoker in one of those steamships that used to cross from California all the way down to Chile, up and down the coast. And in one of the stops he met my grandmother. He had a relationship with her. My father was born, and he decided to, in 1910, he decided to stay here in Panama, and he was searching for a job. He hooked on the beginning of the Panama Canal construction in those days. Well, it was my grandfather, I told him, Manuel Rodgers, and he started in 1910, as the record shows, as a machinist. From then on, he worked as a steam engineer, and then he rotated back and forth between as a diver. He was a hard hat diver, and also as a rigger, it shows here. And he worked until 1924 as a mechanic. Well, that's his last job, was a mechanic, a shop mechanic. It was a very hazardous job in those times, because we have to remember that we're talking about 1910, in the beginning of last century, and the equipment, diving equipment, wasn't that tremendous. As a scuba diver myself, I know what the difference was, being a hard hat diver and a scuba diver nowadays, that you have all this computer and everything. And you have to rely, first of all, on the people topside, because he was supposed to send in through the airline enough air so he can work underneath. So he would get down on the bottom of the sea at the canal, fixing problems, picking up objects that had fallen into the water, etc. And he was a really nice place at those times, according to his record, that he was making in those days 38 cents an hour, which later on and went up to $1 an hour, depending on the hazards of the job. And he ended up as a diver at the $2.33 an hour. Conditions, the working condition, like I said, it was he was not on the field except for the diver. Like I said, he was a machinist most of the time, and being a machinist and knowing mechanical things, he had the added advantages of being a diver, so they could use him for fixing things on the bottom of the sea. It might be the mechanical things or picking objects of the. But he wasn't that hazardous, in the same that he was not being asked to make any blastings or any drill holes in the bottom of the sea for a blasting procedure or anything. As for living conditions, he was, being a U.S. citizen, he was what they call the gold rule. So he had a house for my grandmother and his son, and all three of them lived fairly well. He was able to send his son to high school, and my grandma was a housemaid all her life, so she didn't actually work. And once he decided to retire, he decided to stay here in Panama because he liked it, and that's where my family actually comes from. We've all been here since then. I never met my grandfather. That's what little I know. Actually, it was from my grandmother. My grandma used to tell me all those stories about my grandfather, and him being part Latin, because his mother, my great-grandmother, was Mexican. My great-grandfather was Scottish, according to the story, and so he had more relationship with the Latin population here in Panama, and he got along also fairly well with the West Indians that lived in the canal. So he had, including my father, he had a good relationship with everybody involved. It's not like other Americans, I assume, not like other Americans who came from the East Coast, and they were typically involved only with white folks, and they never been engaged with in social contact with black persons. What I remember from folks, because as a canal employee, former canal employee, I've been in touch also with a lot of West Indies employees whose father worked for the canal. And one of the things I remember, because I used to work, I retired from the dredging division. The dredging division also was in charge of all the explosive, all the blasting along the canal. So I worked there, and so I heard a lot of stories. For another thing is, in those days, they were accident prone, because remember we were talking about dynamite, and there were a lot of accidents, especially in Gaylor Cut. And because that's what I tell the folks. Actually, the canal is the Gaylor Cut, because from the Gaylor Cut to the Caribbean Ocean is the Chagres River. They use the path of the Chagres River, and on the other side they use the Rio Grande River. So actually, there's two. So the actually part that really have to be excavated and blasted away is the Gaylor Cut, and that's where a lot of accidents happen. You have to go up the slope holding a case of dynamite on top of your head, balancing, and there were a lot of slips and falls, and also the dynamite sometimes would not blast properly, so they have to go in and check to see what happened, and then while they're checking, the thing would blast away and would kill him. So there were a lot of accidents. This was the beginning of the century, and there were a lot of things that had been tested in such a grand scale as before, such as the concrete pouring of the locks. The locks are made of solid concrete with no reinforcement, because in those days they didn't know anything about the concrete. That was a big, large-scale project that they used concrete on. And also the same thing goes for the blasting procedure. Nowadays the blasting is fairly stable. They don't use dynamite any longer. They use AMFO, which is ammonium nitrate fuel oil, which actually is a gas. When put inside a blasting hole, it creates this gas. As the gas expands, it cracks the stone away. In those days, it was gunpowder. It was or dynamite was just it was beginning to be produced, but actually it was gunpowder in reality, and that's what most of the accidents happened.